Hello, good evening. Good evening, my friends. We finally have an up move. Really, really nice. We'll talk about it briefly. I'm not going to stick around for too long today. I need some sleep. I got up at 5 something in the morning this morning, which is too early for me. So I cut it short. But we'll still run through Bitcoin and maybe an altcoin or two. But yeah, this is nice. This is nice. Braden says, wow, first time I'm watching live. Welcome, my friend, welcome. A bunch of people actually saying the same thing. Number go up but go down. I mean, it's been going up, and I'm cautiously optimistic. Hey Don, hope you and Fam are well. I'm leveraged long with fairly decent size at 79k. Can you give thoughts please on adding to winning positions, when to do it and when to close and free long new positions? I mean, if you already decent size, I don't really see the point of adding a bunch. You have decent size, just keep it that way. I've seen too many people increasing positions, playing around with it, and then fucking up a perfectly fine entry. You have the luxury of not having to do anything. Why ruin that? It's just gonna overcomplicate things. I think people do that way too much. Did you lever up as you said? No, I'm busy right now. I mean, I'm gonna have a second child in a couple days. So I'm not. You're not gonna see me trade too actively, at least in the next couple of weeks. It looks good though. Looks good. This is a chart, Bitcoin chart versus the S&P, and that's really nice. Look at that. Made a higher low, and is now quite aggressively outperforming the S&P, which we love to see. Never thought I'd say this, but Fartcoin to the moon. I mean, yeah, we talked about it in the last couple of weeks. Been doing really well. But yeah, before we start the show, big shout out to Woo for sponsoring it. Really appreciate their support. Their links are in the description if you want to check them out. Yeah, let's go over Bitcoin at least. On the monthly, we're back at resistance, second time. It's really shitty resistance though, but we are back at it. The first time we got rejected here. It's gonna be interesting to see if we're doing it again. But generally, like, it's weak resistance. Like, that one tap should have been it. The fact that we're back here makes me think it's probably gonna break. But it's still resistance, right? So this is still technically a bearish chart. You want to see a monthly close above it, and then, I mean, there's nothing left. Good part is, and this is what we talked about last week and the week before, while we're doing this, I was like, this is kind of rounding out. Like, I like how this looks, and I like that we're front running the 70k support, and that's kind of held up really well. So that's really nice. So there's a bullish argument there. We're front running support. Bearish argument, we're running into resistance. But I think that's one of the worst looking charts, and that's honestly like a really good chart. Like, a time frame wise, the worst looking time frame, but it's also really good looking time frame generally. I mean, it's a very aggressive uptrend. You have a pullback, not that aggressive, all things considered. Front run support at resistance right now. Like, that's the only downside, right? And then you go on the weekly time frame, and that's where I think it starts looking much better. A lot of people draw this differently. I like it like this. Most of the price action was in here. You can see how much time we spent in these wicks. Quite a bit. So I'm using the wicks here instead of the body. But if you use the body, you could be like, hey, we're at range low now. The same applies though, that I said last week when we were trading down here, and even the weeks prior, where I was like if you retest this, and this, it's the same thing, right? Like, if you say this is the range low, that retest really shouldn't have happened. It's very rare that you get a breakdown that retests in crypto. Like, a breakdown needs to look like this. If you wanna have kind of like continuation, this is how a breakdown looks. You have a nuke, and excuse all the scribblings from prior streams. You have a nuke, and then you just keep going, right? And this is kind of how it always goes. It's very rare that you get like a nuke, a retest, and then you go. So in this case, as in many other cases, the fact that we are back at that resistance level would have me spooked as a bull, as a bear, but it is still resistance, right? So we have, depending on how you draw it, with resistance on the monthly and on the weekly, but to me, I want to just see if we can close above 90k, and if we do, I mean, I don't really see a good reason to be super bearish. We have a couple of days left. We are also seeing just the current US admin soften up a lot on tariffs and on their hostility. If you remember back just a couple days, 2 weeks ago, Liberation Day, and all that talk, like US is gonna basically reform the world order and kind of like win against everyone. And today, and like generally in the last 2 to 3 days, you've seen a lot of, oh, we want to actually work with our partners, and oh, we want to maybe reduce the tariffs on China. I basically think a lot of the CEOs of like bigger corporations in the US got through and actually talked some sense into the admin. They were like, yeah, we're gonna be fucked if you keep doing this. It's kind of what I think, and it must have stuck because the messaging has changed significantly, and unless that changes back, we have a little bit of a macro tailwind. But it's nice that the stuff we talked about last week is kind of playing out, where I was like, this is all like setting up quite nicely. We just need a little bit of support. So far, that's kind of where we are. Crypto's been, especially Bitcoin's been outperforming the traditional markets. This was the strength we talked about. And we just needed a little bit of a tailwind. Now, obviously, it's not out of the woods yet. The whole macro situation is still crazy complicated. The tariffs are, like the impacts of the tariffs not really been felt yet, I think. So once that comes online, we'll see if the stock market continues to go up or not. But at least the first good step, and the charts look much better. And the cool thing is, we do have a little bit of a precedent. Even if the S&P doesn't really go up, gold rallied a lot. So technically speaking, if the narrative shifts on crypto, you could argue that goes up as well. One little headwind that we have is that Trump is pumping his coin again, which pulls out liquidity of the rest of the market. Trump's been going up because he announced that he would meet basically anyone that buys a lot of his coin, he would meet and have a dinner with, which I find quite humorous. The US president basically being like, yo, buy my shitcoin, and you can sit down with the most powerful man on the planet. Just need to spend some money on my bags. It's a little bit wild, but it's just how we are. So yeah, that's kind of like the high time frames. Like I said, we are at resistances. The only time frame where we're not is on the daily. On the daily, we technically reclaimed the whole breakdown. And the cool part about all of this is that we're basically trading back at levels. Like we had this big pump day, right? If you remember back, that was Trump saying that the US would be buying like XRP, ADA, and like ETH, I think. I don't know if there was anything else in there. Solana, XRP, ETH, whatever. That was that pump, and we're all the way back, even though that was before the big tariff push and everything kind of like fucked the markets. And you can see how different the S&P looks to crypto. So there's some relative strength there, which is always good to see. And yeah, on the daily, it's a reclaimed range. It's going to be interesting to see if it can hold that or not. Like that's gonna be like the big question in the next couple of days. But so far so good, right? So monthly at resistance, weekly at resistance, daily broke through resistance. So let's hope that this is basically like you have one breakout on the daily, and that's gonna pull the other ones along. That'd be best case. If obviously, I mean, one thing that you're always gonna have to watch these days is the messaging that comes out of the White House. If that changes, I think gotta be a little bit more careful. If it doesn't, and I mean, you can like go through what basically has been said today, and you will find the messaging very, very different from the last couple weeks, which is at least a good sign that something's changing. I still don't think Trump is a good buy. I mean, anyone that thinks Trump is a good buy is completely delusional. Short term, obviously you can always trade it, but like long term, that thing is going to zero. You know it. Don, what are your chances? What do you think are the chances of a retest of 89 to 90k? 89. I mean, that's like honestly, that's as low as it can go without turning bearish. So I mean, if you get that and you're bullish, that seems decent enough. But like, just look on the weekly, right? You do retest 89, 90 and then close. Then you close below the range, and I think that actually be quite a bad close. So if this weekly wicks, it turns into wick and closes anywhere close towards like 88, 89. So basically anywhere below this green line, I think starts looking really, really dangerous really fast. I think the only way that that can happen is like if the tariff stuff intensifies again. But if that happens, that'd be a really bad look, because then basically what happens, and this is something that I hate, is you have resistance here. That's the range low that everyone looks at. This is the range low I look at, and then you basically get a move through resistance into the next one, and then a rejection, and that's like one of the worst setups to counter trade. Like I hate that. It's one of my favorite short setups or long setups. So basically, when you have like a support, right, and you have like a big candle to the downside, it's the best. And then people buy that support, and then you just wick, and there's a decent support below it. You just wick in that lower support, and all of these people that bought here get liquidated in that lower support, and it springs back up. Like that's one of my favorite setups. Like whenever I see the market overextend, and I really like a support level, but I think there might be some liquidations coming in. This is kind of what I try to catch on the long side, right? So basically, I really like the level, and I'm like, and I mean, there's a lot of examples of how this works in practice. But anyway, like I like a level, I see liquidations coming, and I'm like, I'm gonna bid the next nearest level, even if it's worse than that, below it, because I think there's a good chance that these people that buy the level, that's very obvious, get liquidated into where I can kind of load up. And then you load up and basically springs up immediately. This is all of this price action down here, right? All of this is just the wick, and then you just have base in that support, and everyone's like, oh, it's obvious, like that support held, but the wick tells the story of a lot of lost fallen brothers that try to be a little bit early. And it's the same obviously on the upside, right? Like you get a wick to the upside, and there's a good resistance here, and then like a semi good resistance higher up, and it's kind of like a liquidation wick where shorts get completely blown out. I like to sell those if I get it, and if I'm bearish. Like this obviously depends on your bias, right? But if I'm bearish and that happens, I like to sell into that one. You get the wick, you have an immediate invalidation up here, right, which is basically your entry, because this is supposed to be just a liquidation candle, and shouldn't be necessarily retested with a new higher high or lower low in this case. Like one of my favorite setups to play, would be bad if this turns into one of those, right? So it is important to see how this weekly closes. How do you see the liquidations coming exactly? I mean, it depends. But oftentimes you just need to look at the price action, right? Like, let's say something catastrophic happens, right? Like, let's say the tariffs intensify, and you kind of like you can feel it building up, and the price action just does this, and then you have like a really good support here, and but you see that it's been bleeding, kind of like that. It's a controlled sell-off, but the backdrop is one that can lead to panic, right? And this is something that's very obvious, like COVID, for example. You have like a backdrop that you know could lead to panic, right? So you know that the end of it is probably a panic move. It's the same, like let's say Trump decides to invade Greenland, right? Like if that happens and the market moves slowly, like this, and there's war on the table, right? No matter how likely it is that that actually happens or whatever, there is more, or like that, like the scale of it all, you know that people are in a position where they're gonna panic, and they just need price to go low enough for them to start panicking. And at that point, that support is never gonna hold. You always know that that support is not gonna hold. You know that basically that panic event is still coming. Same on the upside when you get like the price starts doing this, and you just kind of have like a good feeling on the pulse, and you kind of know that the euphoria moment is coming, and then you know that you don't want to sell here, you want to sell when it goes completely vertical. It's just a little bit of an experience thing, but like on the downside, especially these days, it's much easier. Basically, the moment you have uncertainty, and the price starts bleeding, and it's a very obvious thing where you know that panic can come in, because it is like a big scary topic, you can get these setups quite nicely. I like how Don is now using wicks rather than bodies to make it look more bullish. That's true bull posting. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've had this as the range low even while we're trading up here. So technically speaking, I have not changed my chart. If I changed my chart, I would say like, okay, I mean, you clearly just want the price to go up. In this case, I like, to me, like this has been my chart, so I have not changed anything about it. But you can argue like this is the range low. It's a nice kind of level. You have a pretty well defined resistance, and then you can trade based off of that. Don, do you think Elon has that much influence on Dogecoin? I'm looking for a good entry and get out after 3x. I mean, basically the backdrop on Dogecoin, right? Like you just heard me talk about like this whole like bleed thing. Uh, it's the same kind of thing where you can get panic with Dogecoin where you don't get panic elsewhere, right? Like let's say you talk about Dogecoin versus Fartcoin, right? Like both meme coins. If Elon goes down catastrophically, and I mean, you've seen the Tesla earnings, you've seen kind of like how much he's disappeared out of the public eye because it's really been going very, very poorly for him. Like he's basically like, to me, the Elon chart is like this. And I think probably that Elon chart, unless he just completely disappears for like a long time, like a couple months out of the spotlight, doesn't really talk anymore, that's probably also gonna end in a crash out, right? So I think that's the risk that you take with Doge. I am not hating on it. It's just, to me, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Like that's basically the coin of a guy that is in the process of crashing out. Whether you like him or not, I think it's pretty obvious that he's massively struggling. Should we long Melania? I mean, if you start going down that route, man, people need to pray for you. Like the Americans need to get their Bibles out. But yeah, that's Bitcoin. Like I said, it is at resistance, broke the daily, needs a little bit more for. I actually might keep this and remove that because it doesn't, like, the moment we close above any of those two, looks splendid, and I'll keep all of those. So below here, very scary. Close above 90k, early signal that, I mean, the trend has shifted back to bullish again, and close above that obvious range low at 95 that everyone else has, and then we can really start talking about a massive reclaim. I think that's a nice chart. Like, it's just quite clean. It's a good invalidation on the to the downside, and a good kind of criteria on the upside. That's the weekly. I'll put that on the weekly. Yeah. Lon, can you look at Tesla chart? I haven't looked at that in a long time. Today's been a good day on that. I generally think, I mean, best you can hope for is range, I think, to kind of like soak up all of the supply, because there's obviously, like, there's a lot of lefties that are very triggered, whether you think it's a good reason or bad reason, don't really care, about all of this, like all the Elon stuff that's been going on, and they have a bunch of supply, not like a lot, but a bunch, and you would want that to be absorbed. So best case, you want to see a range, and then just generally, like, we had the old range here. Like, that's the range, right? You can see, like, we've been trading in here. We had a little bit of a wipeout here in 2022, 2023, and but that's been a decent range. Went back to the high, got rejected. Now trading back in the bulk of it. Not really that interesting. I think the best case is range. Worst case is that this just continues to bleed out. Do you consider averaging down on ETH? No. I generally am not the biggest fan of averaging down. If I have a position that is winning and I have too little, I am down to buy a little bit more. But that's only if I have too little. Like, it's what we talked about early in the stream when the one guy said, "Hey, I have a really nice bottom long, and it's quite big size. I wanna add." It's a little bit of a different story, right? When I have good size, I don't generally tend to want to add. I just want to make sure that I can just stick with it. If I have too little, I'm down to add. But if I'm down a bunch, I usually tend to not add, because there's a good chance that I'm just wrong. Sometimes if I have a spot and I want to take a leverage position, and this is something that I'd be open to, like, I can take an additional leverage position, but I need a really good reason for it. And right now it's not the case. We can talk about like a leverage position above 2K. And then that would technically be averaging down, but that's just a trade, right? Like, that's leverage, not spot. And then you can talk from 2K towards like 3K, and that's like a nice leg on a leverage bet, or maybe even hold beyond 2.7 3K. It's down, like, I'm down for that, but needs to give me a good reason. I don't want to be the guy that longs more on like the only couple of green candles we've had on the chart. Are you still holding? Yeah, I'm still back holding. I mean, I'm up a bunch. I mean, I haven't, like, every day people ask me like, have you changed your positioning? And I'm like, no, I've just been like doing nothing. I'm up like 3 to 4x on XRP. I'm down like 40% on ETH, I think. And there's a few other positions, but nothing too major. That I just keep holding, basically. If BTC broke up, I mean, yeah, I like how this has capitulated. It's what I've been talking about for a while. Like that, I want to see this capitulate, but also, like I always say, capitulation can go on longer than you'd expect. Like another week of this, right, wouldn't be so surprising on the chart. Would be horrendous, obviously. Like it doesn't look like much, right? But that would be 40% down again. And then it could still, like a candle like that, and then you get the next candle that literally like this, and it would still look the exact same as it does now. So like on that front, I'm not entirely convinced. I'd be more than happy if this is the bottom, and I'm cheering for everyone that's buying it. And it is capitulating, like we said. It's just, I mean, it's not necessarily a strong move yet. Like coin hopium. I mean, the monthly support line has held, which is nice. We talked about this one last week, while we're trading at like 70 or whatever. Now we're trading at 82, 83. At least that's holding, but this one is a little bit of a nail biter. False breakout here was not great. Leading on this heavily, not great. But we had a false breakout down here, and we can just hope that it holds and basically just walks up, and then maybe argue like, hey, like this is actually the resistance and it wasn't a false breakout, and this is just the thing with DA, right? I actually don't mind this resistance now that we've have a little bit more price action. Still works with this, right? Rejected here, rejected here, rejected here again. Now it looks much better. That's why you can retrofit anything you like chart wise. That's why you shouldn't be getting too married to it, right? Like you can look like you want to be bullish Litecoin. I can draw you that chart that makes you bullish Litecoin. That's why having invalidations and kind of making sure you check yourself is important. What are your thoughts on moving stops to break even? When do you do so? When to do so, or generally not a fan? It depends. If there's a really good reason to do it, and oftentimes there is, and then why not? But if you just do it because you don't want to lose money, then I mean, that's really dumb. I talked about this setup, for example, right, where you have a really good support level here, and you get the liquidation level here. Your entire thesis is I bought the liquidations of these people, and this is actually the bottom. I just got to buy it cheaper down here. Then you really should never go back below there, right? So you bought here, it moves back up, like so. Price comes down, breaks through the support, goes in here, moves back up. You should never get that discount again. So having your stop at break even makes sense in that instance, right? Because you bought liquidations. You got the support that is technically the bottom in here, with a discount on top. That should not be broken again. But if you're like, okay, I bought a support, like price did this, and now it's bouncing, and my stop loss, like I bought in the middle of it, and now I put my stop loss here, and then you're just like randomly like, okay, that's my reasoning. I don't want to lose money, and it does this and then goes up. You feel like a moron, and for good reason too, right? Because nothing's changed here. The fact that it just went below your entry didn't change anything. Like, and I can show you this on the chart. Like, let's say you're like, okay, I bought, and I mean, we can redraw this. So this was how it is, right? So you're like, I bought this support here. My original idea is that this cluster here should hold, right? And that's the most reasonable. Like if you buy this and you don't have all of this price action to the right, that's the most reasonable kind of area to look at. And so you basically, you're like, okay, this needs to hold. I bought this here, and then it bounces and it goes back down, and you're like, ah, shit, I don't want to lose money on this trade, so I'm gonna put my stop break even before this has ever broken this support. It's a little bit foolish, right? Like, and on that instance, you just basically, you get stopped out here, you lose money on fees, it goes back up, goes back down, still hasn't invalidated you, your original idea is still holding, and then it goes up, and then you kind of just stopped out, right? Let's say you just kept to your original idea because it's not been invalidated. You're sitting in here, you bought that support, it goes up now, and you have this as the range, right? So this is your range, and now you break out of the range, and you're like, okay, we broke out of the range. I want to make sure that if it's false breakout, I don't lose any money. So I'm going to move my stop because now we're in a different situation. Then, I mean, that's fine, right? Basically, you're like, my entries in here, my stop loss was down here. This is the range. We broke out of it. If we come back into the range, right? Like we're now in this instance here. So we're trading up here. If we come back into the range, I want to get out. So come back in the range, and you're like, okay, I don't want to be in this anymore. And then you just close somewhere in here. And that's fine, right? And then you basically close break even, but the situation has changed. You just had a false breakout. And obviously you can even manage it more aggressively. You have the all-time high here. You wipe the all-time high, and then you start moving down, and you can see how price actions just kind of behaves like shit on what was like a all-time high breakdown, and you can just move your stop loss also. So it's like just moving your stop to break even just to not lose money. That's the wrong way to look at it. But moving your stop loss once the situation has changed, I mean, that's fair enough. Hope that helps. I mean, I don't know if that made any sense, and I mean, there's a lot of lines on this chart. Actually, probably don't need all of those. I think that can go. I think that one can go. No. Do you think that one can go? That's more interesting. Can you chart ETH? Basically, to me, the ETH chart is one of, we've just broken down a bunch, and it needs to reclaim a little bit to look bullish. So right now it's still quite aggressively bearish, but we had a little bit of a good week. Reclaim 2K, and we can start talking about major trend shift that we haven't had in a long time. And then we're talking. Now, if you want to be more aggressive, right, and I can open, I don't feel like hiding all of those. So I'll just go on a different chart. You look on the daily, and you want to like do your business here. It's a little bit of a tough one. Technically speaking, we're retesting that area here. On Bitcoin, I wouldn't like the retest being immediate. Like I would be like, oh, maybe this is a sign that we're actually having more strength. On altcoins, this is not the case. On altcoins, like what I explained earlier with the retests, happens much more often than you'd think. Like you get more, like better clean retests on altcoins than you get on Bitcoin. Like you get breakdowns, and then you get immediate retests, and you get them quite nicely, like almost all the time. Like this entire way down, for example, here, you get quite, like depending on how you draw it, you get quite clean retests. So you're not necessarily out of the woods just because you're like, Don just said like clean retests. Oftentimes I actually like a sign that this wants to go. On altcoins, is not the case. You can find these on altcoins all the time. You get just clean bearish retests, and then the market just nukes. So you're not as safe here. Look, you get like that. You get the breakdown, and you get that like retest-ish. This is a better retest on higher time frames. And you get a retest, and then it just dumps like 30-40% still. So this is not necessarily like, if you want to trade the classical kind of like stair step thing where it does like where you have this, altcoins are the better place to look for that. So I just don't like the daily chart. You can make an argument like, hey, below 1.6 at this, or like basically let's remove all of this, below here it starts looking really bad again, and I'm down for that. And then you basically any close below here would be bad. Stop loss below here, that's a decent trade if you think that this is the bottom. Someone asked me last week, it was like, hey, while we had that big green candle, it was like, where would you bid this if you think the bottom is in? You guys remember? Anyone was around? I was like, this is the box you want to draw, and anything in the box is like a decent place with like a stop basically at the lows. That worked out quite well, right? Like you got the big green candle. This is when we talked last, or like maybe not last week, but anyway, when that green candle happened, it was on a Wednesday. So we talked about it basically on that day. The next day we retested the box, walked up, retested it twice more, and now broke out. And that person, for example, right, he was like, oh, I want to bid this, I think the bottom's in, which kudos to you, like it's had a nice move. Let's say that person bid in the range and his stop loss was down here, right? Like, let's say that is his bid. If he moves his stop loss up here, right, that is at least somewhat reasonable, because this is the impulse candle that took us out of that range. It's a break-even stop. If you consider fees and everything, slippage fees, all that kind of stuff, it's a break-even stop, but it's not break-even because he would be afraid of losing money. It's break-even because he just had a really nice, and this happens like often. This happens to me like all the time, where you get like a good entry and then your stop loss is basically at a break-even level, because really shouldn't go back to your entry. In this case, it's the same story. Would be a break-even stop loss, would be like, a lot of people would make fun of it because it's break-even. I would say in this case it would be justified. That was me, and bought 1550 weekly support, which is also right there. I sweat blood for 2 fucking weeks. Was horror. Well, I mean, I'm happy for you, man. Happy it worked out. Hope it keeps working out for all of our bags. So I think basically you really don't, like, as you said, 1750 cannot be lost on the daily. I think that's fine. What cannot be lost is basically down here. Like, you don't want to see any close below here, and you don't want to see any move below the impulse move, which would basically be your entry. At least that's how I look at it. Don't sue me if the chart does this. That'd be so crypto. But I mean, this just would also be funny, no? But generally, that's how I look at the market when I trade these lower time frames. But I tend to not do that anymore these days. Thanks again, Don. I love you so much. Much love back. Hey, Don, can you look at the the OM disaster? I was like, what are you talking about? Any chance for bounce? Nah, man, that's not my area of expertise. Sorry. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the interesting stuff. Like I said, I'm super busy with the second child coming, so there's a good chance that I will not be around for this week's Friday show or next week's Wednesday show. But I'll try my best. We'll see how it goes. I'll try to tweet every now and then, and if I find the time, I'll try to stream. But yeah, thanks for coming by. Much love to all of you. Hope you have an excellent rest of your week. Big shout out to Wu also for sponsoring the show. Like I said, their links are in the description. And yeah, see you guys next time. Bye bye.